All right, guys, welcome to our second week of e-learning. So I will tell you this week you are going to have a new topic. It's one of my favorites of 8th grade math. This is the students' favorite thing as well. Typically, this is my favorite thing to teach all year. And for the students, they tend to love this the most about our 8th grade math, the Pythagorean theorem. Before we get started on it, every year, the kids always are kind of intimidated by it because the name sounds really hard and complicated. Pythagorean theorem. So I want to kind of explain. It's not going to be as hard as it says or as it seems just based off the name. This Pythagorean is based on a last name. It's based off the person who discovered this theory many years ago. All right, so his name was Pythagoras, and he came up with this theory on right triangles, and now this theory is kind of proven to be true, and it is a huge theory in geometry. When you guys are in geometry, your freshman or sophomore year, this is going to be like a huge geometry topic. And so again, I have my little makeshift triangle here. The Pythagorean theorem only applies to right triangles. And you're going to know if you have a right triangle because they mark it here with like a little box, and it's just telling you that this angle is 90 degrees. So it's a right triangle. Of course, we know triangles have 3 sides. In a right triangle, these sides have special names, okay? The sides that touch the 90-degree angle are called legs. All right, so that's a leg, and this is a leg. All right, and they form a 90-degree angle. Now the line, or the side of the triangle that's opposite of the right angle or not touching the right angle is called a hypotenuse. Now what you need to know is the hypotenuse is the longest side. Something I usually talk about every year when we go over this, like when you see advertisements for big screen TVs. So you want to buy a new flat screen TV and they tell you that it is a 60-inch flat screen TV. Your instinct might be thinking, okay, I need to go home and measure a 60-inch spot on my wall because this TV is going to be 60 inches wide. But that's not true. When they tell you the size of a TV, they're telling you the size of the diagonal. And the reason for this is because they're giving you the longest side. Basically, it makes their TV sound better. So they're telling you the side of the hypotenuse. So this, which would be like a leg, is going to be less than 60 inches long. They want to give you the longest side that they can to kind of get more bang for their buck in the advertisement. It just makes the TV sound bigger. So this diagonal part would be like the hypotenuse. All right, so in the Pythagorean theorem, that's just something with the TVs that I kind of like to go over with them. The kids lots of times don't know that. So the hypotenuse always has to be the longest side. When you're working with this, you have to keep that in the back of your mind because once we go through this, if you end up getting a smaller number here than what is here or here, you know you've done something wrong. You need to check your math. So the Pythagorean theorem, and I actually think the discovery behind the Pythagorean theorem is kind of cool. It's just interesting to me, but I'm a math teacher. I want to put up like a video that explains it a little bit more, just kind of like how he discovered this theory, because to me it's just kind of interesting. But the Pythagorean theorem states that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now we know in math these variables represent something. I've probably told you guys this before, but in math we like to shorten things up when we can, use variables and symbols instead of writing out like the longer words. A, B, and C are always going to be your variables. You have 3 different variables for 3 different sides. Your legs are A and B. So I could call this side right here A, or I could call this side right here A. It doesn't really matter. But the legs, A and B, are always touching and forming this 90-degree angle. The hypotenuse is always C. So C does not touch the 90-degree angle. It's opposite from it. So the Pythagorean theorem states that A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. So I'm going to look, I have an IXL pulled up here too, and it's giving me a right triangle. And in this IXL, it's asking you to find the length of the hypotenuse. So we're trying to find C. And so I have the leg lengths 3 and 4. So I'm going to plug those numbers in. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. All right, so my legs, A and B, were equal to 3 and 4. And so I take out the variables and I plug those numbers 3 and 4 in for A or B. Now I could have done it 4 squared plus 3 squared. I'm going to get the same thing. So it doesn't really matter which side length is A or B again. It's kind of interchangeable. So 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. To do this, to start, you're going to actually figure out what is 3 squared. What is 3 times 3? It's 9. What is 4 plus 4? 16 is equal to C squared. So I squared A, I squared B, took them to the second power. And then I'm going to go ahead and add. And I get 25 is equal to C squared. This equation looks like what you worked on last week. That is why I had you guys do this last week, because you have to be able to know how to solve an equation with an exponent of 2 to solve for C. So C squared is equal to 25. Take the square root, that gets C by itself, and the square root of 25 is 5. Last week we talked about how square root equations could have 2 possible answers, a positive or a negative. In this Pythagorean theorem, I'm only going to use the positive answer, and I want you guys to try to think for a second, like, why would I only use the positive answer? I'm just giving you guys a second to think. So in the Pythagorean theorem, we're dealing with distance. We're talking about a measurement of a triangle. I'm not going to have a triangle that has a side length of -5 kilometers or centimeters or feet or whatever the unit is. All right, so in geometry, because I'm talking about how long C is, you're only going to use the positive answer. So in this equation, 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. C is 5. And that's actually a pretty common right triangle, the 3, 4, 5 triangle. They call that a Pythagorean triple. And it will kind of come up a lot. So looking at this one, I have another right triangle, and this IXL R1, you are always finding C. All right, so you have leg lengths of 15 and 8, and you want to figure out what is C. So I want you guys to actually, we're going to stop and we're going to think, like, how would you plug this into the Pythagorean theorem? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Think about it. Try to figure out how you would do it. All right, so the Pythagorean theorem tells me A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I have, this could be A or it could be B. Same thing here. Remember, your legs are interchangeable. I'm going to take my 2 side lengths. I have 15 and 8, and I'm going to plug those numbers in. 15 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. All right, so I'm gonna try to pause again. I'm gonna let you guys figure out, try to go ahead and get the process started. Like, what do you think I should do next? What's my first step? And we'll see if you get it right. So what you want to do first is you are taking this each number to the second power. So I'm going to do 15 times 15. You get 225. I do 8 times 8. I get 64. And that is equal to c squared. And then you add. So what is 225 plus 64? So I have 289 is equal to c squared. From this point, after you add, you take the square root. The square root of 289. If you need a refresher, right here on your calculator, first you type in 289. Square root is 17. Type it in. 17. So the good thing about the Pythagorean theorem, it kind of follows the same process to find the hypotenuse. You go through the same steps. Right here on this problem, I'm not going to work it all the way out again, but I'm just going to tell you, you have two legs shown, 5 and 12. And so you would do 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. So 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144. You would add those together and then take the square root of that answer. So do not forget the Pythagorean theorem. It's a huge topic, and it is typically everyone's favorite. I wish we were in our classroom going over it. I love the Pythagorean theorem unit. We'll probably be working on it for a while because it's like a whole chapter in your textbook. So I'm going to post some links up to some other videos. Mine is certainly not the most high-tech or the most fancy, I know that, but I just really wanted to be the one to teach this because I absolutely love the Pythagorean theorem. So want you guys to work on R1 in your IXL assignment. If you have any questions, let me know. You're also going to have a Khan Academy practice on this as well, with another video on the Pythagorean theorem from Khan Academy. So keep in touch, and I'll be checking in again next week.